In life, there are those who win without fighting, and those who fall when they think they are invincible. Because victory lies not only in strength, but in the calmness of mind, in the art of hiding strength when you are in control, and pretending to be weak when you are preparing to strike a fatal blow. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. A simple saying, but the quintessence of thousands of years of strategy, distilled from the blood and sweat of famous generals. That is not a lie, but the art of manipulating the opponent's emotions, turning the opponent into a chess piece on your own chessboard. When we appear strong when we are weakest, we make the enemy wary. When we appear weak when we are strongest, we lure the opponent into a trap. That is the kind of power that only those who truly understand the game have the courage to use. In strategy, the most important thing is not to win the battle, but to master the entire game. When we have not yet made a move, the opponent has already panicked. When we have not yet attacked, the opponent has already broken up. Every step back is a hidden step forward. Every silence is a storm waiting to explode. Imagine you are in the middle of the desert, where the enemy thinks you are exhausted, and out of will. But at that very moment, you silently grip your sword, your eyes fixed on the target, your mind unwavering. And when the moment comes, you strike like a thunderbolt tearing the sky, leaving the enemy no time to complain. That is not luck, but a strategy nurtured by wisdom, patience, and extraordinary endurance. Sun Tzu's Art of War is not only a handbook for generals, but a compass for everyone fighting in everyday life. In business, in love, in art, whoever knows how to hide will live long. Whoever pretends to be confused will make others complacent. And whoever hides his intentions will control the outcome. Strategic thinking is knowing that there is no need to prove anything, because true victory is when everyone thinks you are about to fail, and then you break all their plans with an unexpected move. It requires not only intelligence, but also courage, emotional stability, and the ability to control yourself. People who cannot control their emotions cannot master the game. People who are easily angered are always controlled. People who like to show off are always prey to those who are silent. So, when you are strong, do not show your eagerness. When you are weak, do not show your fear. Let people look at you without being able to guess. That is the pinnacle of strategy. And when you strike, surprise the world because you have been preparing for a long time, just waiting for the right moment to win with a single blow. In a chaotic world, where the battlefield is no longer just a place where swords are swung but also a place where thoughts are fought, the last survivor is not the strongest, but the one who understands best himself and the enemy. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. An immortal saying, simple but carrying the weight of 1,000 soldiers lined up for battle. This is not just military advice. This is the key to opening all doors to success in life, in business, in the art of leadership, and in the silent battles we have to face every day. Knowing yourself is looking straight into the mirror, seeing not only your face but also your fear, ambition, weaknesses, and the hidden source of strength inside. It is not deceiving yourself that you are perfect, but also not lowering yourself when you fail. Knowing yourself is daring to see the darkness in your heart, but still steadfastly walking towards the light. What about knowing people? It means not judging your opponent by rumors. It means listening, observing, feeling, to understand what drives them forward, what makes them panic, and where their real weaknesses lie. There is no invincible opponent, only we have not truly seen the holes in their armor. Understanding people is not to despise them. It is to know when to fight, when to yield. To know when to counterattack, or when to disappear like smoke. To know that the strongest person is not the one who always wins, but the one who chooses the best time to not fight. To know your enemy, you must become your enemy. What does it mean? It means putting yourself in their shoes, feeling like them, thinking like them, and from there reading their next move before they can act. That is the art of strategic geniuses. This world is not for the blind. Those who do not know who they are, what they want, what they are good at, what they are weak at, will always be swept away by the flow of life. And those who do not understand others will always live in fear, passive, and always be at a disadvantage. Understand yourself, you will control your emotions, make timely decisions, not be manipulated by praise, criticism, threats, or enticements. Understand others, you will see through the mask that the opponent is wearing, understand what they really need, and from there control the entire chessboard the way you want. That is why people who understand themselves and others are never afraid, even when facing hundreds of battles. Because victory is in their hands before the game begins. In the noisy age of information, this advice becomes even more valuable. Knowing others, whether customers, competitors, or partners, is a superpower. But that superpower starts with understanding yourself. You don't have to be a genius, you just have to be the clearest and most honest version of yourself, and then look at the world with clear eyes. That's how you become invincible, not with weapons, but with awareness. To win 100 victories in 100 battles is not the acme of skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. Sun Tzu. Do you hear that? It is the sound of a battlefield, completely silent. No clashing swords, no fallen bodies, no bloodshed. And strangely enough, the victor has stepped onto the podium of glory. In a world accustomed to fighting is winning, winning without fighting sounds like a fantasy. But that fantasy is the pinnacle of strategic art. When you make your enemy give up before the war begins, it is not luck. It is when you have won from their thoughts, their beliefs, their will. You have made them lose their direction, their spirit, their reason to fight. Winning without fighting is not running away. It is winning by intelligence, by psychological leverage, by controlling the game so perfectly that it does not require physical force. It requires a superhuman state of mind, an inner strength so calm that the enemy doubts himself. When you do not act, and they are still confused, that is when you have succeeded. When you do not need to strike, and they retreat, that is the pinnacle of strategy. Like a master swordsman, who can draw his sword and win, but often does not need to draw his sword. Do you know what the most magical thing is? It is that you leave no one injured, not even yourself. No blood, no destruction, no consequences. The world remains intact, but order has been restored, the way you want it. Victory without fighting is when you build a bridge for your opponent to retreat, instead of forcing them into a corner. That is when you use your dignity, vision, and compassion to restore the situation, instead of burning it all down. It is the same in life, sometimes, you don't need to argue to win. You just need to be quiet at the right time, patiently observe, and let others realize that you are on a higher level. Ordinary people win by force. Smart people win by strategy. But great people are those who don't need to fight but still dominate the game. That is the person who, just by walking into the room, no one dares to look down on. That is the person who, with just a look, a word, is enough to make the opponent retreat. That is the person who is trained to the point of becoming the battle that others dare not enter. True victory does not lie in defeating anyone. It lies in not having to prove anything, because you are strong enough, wise enough, and powerful enough to let everything happen the way you want it to, without conflict. Remember, the greatest is not the one who has many wounds after 100 battles, but the one who walks through this life with dignity, serenity, and victory, without anyone being hurt. In the art of war, as in life, it is not the one who attacks more who is stronger. The truly strong person is the one who knows when to attack, when to stop, when to be silent, and when to rise up like a whirlwind. Attack is the secret of defense. Defense is the planning of an attack. A short sentence, but it contains a whole universe of strategy. Have you ever seen a warrior who never draws his sword in a hurry? They stand still, observe, listen to every little movement of the opponent. They are not moved by screams or bright lights. They wait. And then, when the moment comes, they strike as fast as thunder, as precise as lightning, without a single mistake, without a single stroke to spare. That is the timely attack, the weapon that no power can resist. Because it does not come from muscles, but from intelligence, discipline, and the ability to sense the moment. Meanwhile, defense is not a weak retreat. Defense is the art of setting traps. It is when you pretend to give way, but in fact you are forcing the opponent to fall into the position you want. It is when you temporarily retreat, but not to avoid it, but to prepare for an unstoppable counterattack. That is what makes ordinary people unable to understand great people, because they do not see the plan behind the silence, the patience, the waiting. Move not unless you see an advantage. Use not your troops unless there is something to be gained. Sun Tzu not only teaches fighting, but also teaches restraint. You see? It is not always good to fight. There are battles that do not need to be fought. There are words that do not need to be said. And there are enemies that just need to be let to step into the traps they themselves have created. The true winner is the one who knows what is worth fighting and what is worth letting go. The one who knows when silence is sharper than any sword. And knowing that choosing the wrong time, no matter how strong, is just a loser. Attack at the right time is when you don't need to spend any effort but still make the opponent collapse. It's when you hit the weakest spot, at the moment they are most subjective. One hit is enough. And defense is when you make the opponent tired because they don't know what you are thinking, doing, preparing. That's when you don't move a step, but the whole battlefield moves with you. And you know? Life is the same. Success doesn't come to those who are hasty. It comes to those who know how to retreat one step to advance 3 steps. Know how to be silent to hear what others don't say. Know how to wait for opportunities instead of creating chaos. Flexibility is power. Not fixed, not conservative, not hasty. But it is the flexibility of someone who masters the situation, not controlled by circumstances, but uses circumstances to transform the game. Remember, attack is when you are sure to win. Defense is when you are leading the opponent to defeat. And he who understands this will never lose, whether in battle or in life. In every battlefield, from ancient times to the fierce races of modern times, the true power of a general lies not in the sword, but in the heart that knows how to love and lead. Treat your men as you would your own beloved sons, and they will follow you into the deepest valley. Sun Tzu. Just that one sentence has revealed the entire spirit of a true leader. The leader leads not by orders, but by faith. Not by power, but by sacrifice. Have you ever seen the eyes of a soldier when looking at a general they are willing to die for? Not because they are afraid, but because they feel protected, seen, respected. And because of that, they are willing to follow that person to the end of danger. That is something that no weapon, no iron discipline can create. Only true love from the leader can light that eternal flame of loyalty. A great leader does not shout or step on others to advance. They lead by action, by example, by quiet but fierce devotion. They do not stand behind and push, but go first to pave the way. A leader leads by example, not by force. Those who only know how to command can control an army. But those who inspire with their own personality will control the heart. Leading with the heart does not mean weakness. On the contrary, it is soft power, the power of understanding, tolerance, and steadfastness, which tyrants can never have. Because a soldier can obey orders out of fear. But only when they feel loved, they fight with all their energy, with all their willingness, with all their heart. And that is when that army becomes invincible. Did you know? In a business, a small group, or a family, this is still true. Great leaders create a climate of safety, trust, and respect, where each member feels like they are part of something bigger than themselves. They don't treat their subordinates as tools. They see each person as an important piece of the puzzle, and they strive to make each one of them truly valuable. Leadership is not about standing higher. It's about reaching lower to lift others up. And when you make someone feel loved, trusted, they will follow you not just out of duty, but out of gratitude, out of respect, out of unwavering faith. You can't build an empire if the hearts of those who fight alongside you are cold and cynical. But you can conquer the world if you make them believe that you will never abandon them in the fight. That is the ultimate art of leadership. Not with a sword, but with a heart on fire. There is no instance of a nation benefiting from prolonged warfare. A short sentence but with the destructive power of an atomic bomb, not hitting the fortress, but hitting straight at the conscience of humanity. War is not the heroic battles like in the movies. It is not the sound of drums urging troops to fight, or the scene of soldiers fighting on the battlefield. War is smoke, blood, tears, orphans and mothers sitting beside newly dug graves. Yet, for thousands of years, mankind has not stopped. Flags continue to be raised high. slogans continue to be chanted, and coffins continue to return in silence. Sun Tzu, a master strategist, a man who understands every trick of war, is the one who left posterity the most earnest messages about avoiding it. He did not glorify war. He warned about the high price it brings. Who does not know the evils of war cannot appreciate its benefits? What does it mean? Only when you have seen with your own eyes the destruction, the separation, the haunting for generations left by war, will you understand the sacred value of peace? And only when you know that the benefits of war can also be the pain that never heals for those caught up in it, will you dare to consider before starting a war. War does not always break out with gunfire. Sometimes it starts from greed, from pride, from ego, from a thoughtless sentence, from a decision that does not foresee the consequences. And when it breaks out, no one will be the winner. Do you know what is most frightening? It is not the sound of bombs. It is the silence after everything has collapsed. It is the coldness of cities without people left. It is the soulless eyes of the lucky ones remaining. So the best person is not the one who wins the most battles, but the one who knows how to end a war before it starts. The one who is wise enough to see the terrible cost of war, and kind enough to find a way to resolve it with wisdom and compassion. In times of peace, that lesson still holds true. Every time you get angry, every time you want to fight back, ask yourself, is this war worth it? Because sometimes, just one wrong word, one rash action, can fan the flames that you will later regret. And if you are strong enough to control yourself, smart enough to find a bloodless solution, tolerant enough to resolve resentment, then you are not only the winner, you are the one who makes the whole world survive. Because the pinnacle of military strategy is not fighting well, but avoiding war when possible. And that is the greatest victory, the victory of the heart over the sword. Just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. Sun Tzu. Look at a stream of water. It has no fixed shape, no color, no smell, no sound. But you know what? That is why it is invincible. Because water does not struggle with shape, it changes to exist. It does not resist resistance, it bends to overcome. It does not destroy, but it can wear down mountains, penetrate layers of earth over time. Strategy, be like water. Don't be rigid. Don't be conservative. Don't believe that a plan can be applied forever. The world changes every moment. The tide can turn in the blink of an eye. And the winner is not the strongest, but the one who adapts the fastest. In war, all conditions are changing. The enemy may be strong today but chaotic tomorrow. The terrain may favor you 1 hour but betray you another. If you keep the same way of fighting in a new situation, you have lost before you even start. Sun Tzu did not teach us to be fighting machines. He taught us to be awakened in the midst of chaos. To be someone who was never locked into a framework. To be someone who can be cold as ice, warm as fire, soft as water, hard as steel, depending on the situation. Adaptation is the key to survival. But not just living, but living intelligently, steadily, and in control. The same is true in life. How many times have you felt stuck, just because things did not go as planned? How many times have you been frustrated because you could not control the situation? But if you change your perspective, if you are like water, you will realize there is no fixed path, only a flexible mind can create a path. Water adapts to the shape of the vessel. The wise adapt to the shape of circumstances. You do not have to fight against every change. You just need to transform yourself to fit in, and then lead. Like a river, winding around rocks, through canyons, eroding everything in its path, silently, persistently, and unstoppably. Flexibility is not weakness. On the contrary, it is the height of inner strength. Because you are not moved by circumstances, you float above them, like water flowing through obstacles, unstoppable, undefended. Agile people are never passive. They do not react emotionally, but strategically. They do not try to dictate the world, but read it, and stay one step ahead. And while everyone else is still trying to prove themselves right, agile people have quietly adjusted, and won in silence. So be like water. No need to scream. No need to be stubborn. Just understand yourself and your circumstances, and melt, transform, overcome. The flexible one is the one who survives. The agile one is the one who cannot be defeated. The whole secret lies in confusing the enemy, so that he cannot fathom our real intent. Sun Tzu. In every war, from ancient times to modern times, from the bloody battlefield to the treacherous marketplace, victory comes not from strength, but from making your opponent not know what you will do next. This is not deception. It is the art of controlling the opponent's mind, making him unable to predict, unable to defend, unable to counterattack, because he does not know what you really want. A wise warrior does not step into the battlefield with his flag flying early. He hides in the fog, so that his opponent does not know where he came from, nor when he will be attacked. Force him to reveal himself, so as to find out his vulnerable spots. A master does not expose himself, but forces his opponent to reveal himself first. It is a psychological attack, a silent attack that is 100 times more destructive than a weapon. When the enemy is disoriented, he will reveal his weakness. When he loses patience, he will be vulnerable. When he is afraid, he will make a mistake. Then, you do not need to fight. You just need to hit the right spot, and everything will collapse. Have you ever seen a cat playing with a mouse? It does not kill immediately. It makes a noise, then goes silent. Approaches, then retreats. Makes the opponent think he has escaped, but in fact he is walking right into an invisible trap. Strategy, that is it. It is controlling the game in silence, making the opponent think he is in control, while in fact he is just running in a maze of your own design. And to do that, you need a weapon that very few people have: sharp silence and the ability to read other people's psychology. You do not need to shout who you are. You only control how others see you. Sometimes, you will be weak. Sometimes, you will be vague. Sometimes, you will seem unworthy. But behind all those masks, there is a cold intelligence, an eye that sees through the shell, a hand that silently controls the battle. You do not fight with force. You fight with surprise. With the doubt you sow in the opponent's mind. By making them doubt themselves, the scariest thing in all wars. Because when a person no longer believes in his own judgment, he becomes paralyzed. And at that moment, you do not need to raise your sword. He has already lost, before you even make a move. Remember, ambiguity is powerful. Unpredictability is armor. And silence, sometimes the loudest scream on the battlefield. Smart people do not attack where the opponent is strong. They distract, go around, and hit the weak spot where the enemy does not see. That is the pinnacle of strategy, when you don't have to fight, but make your opponent fall on his own. You have to believe in yourself. Just 5 words, but they are the soul of every glory, of every spectacular overthrow, of every legend born in hardship. Do you know what separates the winners from the losers, even when they have the same starting point, the same opportunities, even the same circumstances? It is not talent. Nor is it luck. It is the belief, fierce, unwavering, in oneself. In war, a soldier who is afraid will collapse even before entering the battlefield. But a soldier with strong faith, even with only a broken sword, can still perform miracles. Because faith is an invisible weapon, but can penetrate all walls of limitation. If the mind is willing, the flesh could go on and on without many things. When the mind is strong, the body can overcome physical limitations. So the first thing you need to train is not your muscles, not your skills, but your attitude of never doubting yourself. It is your mental toughness, your endurance in silence, your ability to stand up when everyone around you has given up. You will be surprised to know that the great people are not those who have never been afraid, but those who believe they can overcome that fear. And they do. Not because they are better, but because they have never given up on themselves. You can lose everything: money, fame, opportunities, companions, but if you still keep the fire of belief in yourself, you have not lost. You are just taking a detour to reach your destination in your own way. In every game, the biggest opponent is not others, but the doubt inside you. If you let it grow, it will swallow up all your efforts, all your dreams, all your hidden abilities. But if you shut it off, if you look yourself in the mirror and say, "I can. I deserve it. I can do it. Then, at that moment, you are a winner. Because the world will not believe in you until you believe in yourself first. Opportunities will not open up until you smash the door of doubt with your own hands. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be unstoppable. And remember, confidence doesn't mean you're guaranteed to win. Confidence means that even if you fail, you will still get up and keep going, because you know you weren't born to quit. You are a warrior. You are the author of your own story. And every victory, whether in life, work, or within yourself, begins with a decisive choice: believe in yourself. Thus, the expert in battle moves the enemy, and is not moved by him. A master does not get caught up in the battle, he sets it up. There are two types of people in every game: those who get caught up in the whirlpool, and those who create the current. One lets others decide what to do. One makes others act according to his script. And only one of them will win. In war, those who only know how to react are always one step behind. When the enemy attacks, they defend. When the enemy retreats, they chase. When the enemy is silent, they are confused. They are always passive, always led by the nose. But the master of the battle is different. He does not wait to see what the enemy does, he forces the enemy to act. He creates the conditions in which the opponent cannot help but react, and from that reaction, all weaknesses are revealed. This is the pinnacle of strategy, when you don't play by the rules of the game, but rewrite them for yourself. Smart people don't attack where the enemy is strongest. They lure the enemy out of their stronghold, out of their comfort zone, into a quagmire they don't even realize they're in. It's not a physical attack, it's a psychological war, an invisible battlefield where the master always controls the heartbeat of the other person. Imagine this: instead of chasing the game, you force your opponent to reveal themselves, to fend for themselves, to be confused because they don't know what your next move will be. They'll waste energy, doubt themselves, and make bad decisions, because you're forcing them to react. When you're proactive, you don't just control the battle, you control time, space, and psychology. You know when to strike. You know when to wait. And most importantly, you keep your opponent from ever guessing your next move. It is the art of alertness, of a sharp mind, and a spirit that is never shaken by external turmoil. Because you are no longer fighting to survive, you are fighting to dominate. The same is true in life. Successful people are not the ones who do the most work, they are the ones who choose the right work, and make things happen around them. They are not swept away by trends, nor are they swayed by the words or actions of others. They create trends, they influence, and they make the world respond the way they want. Do you want to be that person? Remember this. Don't react. Take control. Don't ask what to do now, but make others ask, what will he do next? Because leaders don't run faster, they think deeper. They don't act more, they act at the right time, in the right way, at the right point. And that is enough to dominate the whole thing, without fighting a single unnecessary battle.